As health, wellness, and beauty experts, you know all about keeping a calm, peaceful space. But what about your business? Is that pretty calm? I'm Erika Dowell, business operations expert and your host of the Business Flow Formula podcast. Each episode, you'll get real-world advice and strategies from people who have been there and done that and live to tell the tale, so you can clarify, streamline, and elevate your practice from the inside out.
My name's Luc Mahler. I am a chiropractor. I am the owner of the Movement Company, and so we are going on year 8. We opened November 15th, 2017 in the same location in the Glebe, but I graduated school in 2013, so I spent the first 4 or 5 years of my life as a chiro working for other people, figuring out what I liked and what I didn't like. And then, one thing led to another. And I ended up moving back from the United States to Canada, to Ottawa, to start practice here. I did my undergrad here. So I kind of fell in love with the city, fell in love with the cycling community, fell in love with the size of the city, and everything it had to offer. It was just a good mix of what I was looking for. Having grown up in a small town, I grew up in Huntsville, Ontario, but having grown up in a small town, I didn't really want full-on big city. And so Ottawa felt like it kind of threaded that needle. So now I live here. My wife and I live up in Chelsea. We've got 2 young kids. And so the next chapter of my life, I guess, is learning how to balance all that. And frankly, she makes this 100% possible because we're rowing the boat in the same direction, which is pretty remarkable, frankly. Like a lot of the mentors that I listen to like to say, like, picking the right spouse makes a big difference.
That's very true.
In whether things work out or they don't. And so we're doing the next chapter with 2 kids, but she's helped me figure out how to navigate all sorts of uncharted waters. So it's been pretty cool.
That's amazing. Having the right partner in life and business, but in life makes such a big difference, and making sure that they're your cheerleader, having someone that can support you even when you completely doubt yourself is such a game changer. So that's great.
And a sobering thought sometimes too, like, as the person that calls the shots here, I know for a fact people don't tell me exactly what they think, right? Like, it's a sugar, even the people that have the stones to say something counterculture to what I'm thinking, it's not the version they really want to tell me. I think most of the time, I think we have an honest and open culture, but there's the truth behind it that, like, you usually don't exactly say exactly what you're thinking. So having someone that'll be direct and question things that maybe you hadn't questioned, even if it's irritating, is definitely important.
Yeah, I totally get that. The ranting versus problem solving, and there's a line and that kind of thing. And it takes practice to get to figure out, like, are we ranting? Are we raving? Are we problem solving? So having someone that can check us is good.
Definitely. Yeah, you need both. You need someone to tell you you're doing great and someone to tell you that even though you're doing great, that idea is dumb.
That's a great analogy there. So back in 2017, how and why did you start the Movement Co?
Yeah, it actually is a project that kind of started a few years before. So I was living in the Midwest, and I was back in Ottawa for cycling. They had cycling road national championships here. I was just here as a fan, just hanging out with some friends. And one of my friends was competing, and we were on a bike ride and shooting the breeze as one does. And he was kind of spitballing about, like, it'd be fun, when I retire, and we'd just start something together, and he would do like the coaching side and I do the therapy side. And I was like, that sounds great. But in the back of my head, I had this, like, don't work with your friends, like everyone says it's a terrible idea, even though I think there's a much more nuanced answer to, like, never work with your friends. Anyway, so I told him probably not up front, but then I started thinking about it when I was back home. And I was like, that actually would be what I want clinic wise and location. Like, I wanted to be in Ottawa. Like, it just checked all the boxes. So it's like, let's do it. So I started planning. The coaching side never happened. He's actually still racing his bike as a pro now, and I don't think coaching's in his future anyways at this point, or at least not in this particular format. But it led to me coming back to Ottawa and figuring out how to start a business. A year probably and change, kind of putting it all together, and then took the leap in September of 2017. Drove all my stuff and my dog back across the 2 countries, and ignorance is bliss. And took a month and a half to, in Ottawa, find a location and secure some bank loans and stuff to be because at this point it was still just a pipe dream, a business plan basically. Came home, figured out how to get it off the ground, and we're still in the same building we were in then. We just now we're at the second floor too. So
that's incredible. So you mentioned before we got on the call today that you've had some incredible growth over the last almost 8 years.
Mhm.
And you started on one floor, now you're on two floors. What do you contribute mostly, or were there processes that you implemented that really enabled you to skyrocket your growth as a business?
Yes, not at first though. When I started, I had like some ideas, I guess, and some principles, how I wanted to do things, and like just also the draining bank account that said like you got to figure this out. Part of being successful early was honestly just staying busy, staying on task. And one of my other friends is cycling coach, and one time I was on a project with him. A lot of my life revolves around cycling, so all of the stories are the same basically. And I was on a project with him, and he was working with a bunch of athletes that were good but not going to win the race type of thing. So we had to give, and they were young kids, so we had to give them something to focus on that was positive because there's only one winner and there was 150 people on the start line. And so he had this whole chart that he made, and he had stickers, and it was great. But he had a bunch of process goals, right? So it was like, did you talk to your teammate? Did you go back and get a water bottle? Like stuff probably had very little bearing on the result, but was something we could say you 100% control that variable. And if you want to be successful, you got to do all these little things well. On days where like my schedule was pretty empty and basically we were losing money, I always come back to like, what was the process goal I could go? What was the one thing I could control 100%? And if I did it, I could go home and like maybe it didn't make me money today, but bank it tomorrow. I could like check a box. And so a lot of that revolved around marketing because like I did my undergrad in Ottawa, but I had been gone for 7 years. And so people remembered 21-year-old Luc, who was a college student and a bike shop mechanic. They didn't know this version or the version in 2017. So I had to go like meet people basically. I had to go out there and figure out how I was going to get people to come see us at the clinic, pay money basically. And so I did a lot of that. I did a lot of networking. I did a lot of marketing. I was at all the places where someone would let me bring a table basically. I'd say yes. I read it in a book somewhere where one guy summed up his business philosophy as early days, say yes to everything. And then eventually, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So I figured I was still in the early days and I just drank from the fire hose and said yes to everything, overcommitted to a bunch of stuff and spent the only thing I had, the only currency I really had to spend, which was my time. It sounds easy now, but like really the reality is I also had a lot of support behind of like early days. I lived on someone's couch for free. And then I had someone split rent with me, even though they never were in their house. They just like heard I needed a place to live. And they're like, oh, you can live with me. And then they ended up spending more time at their parents' house than they did in their house. So I had this whole house to myself with half the rent. Massive things that if they hadn't happened, I would have had to take more money out of my business and business wouldn't have grown. So those were the first things I did. I just started building, I guess, the start of a process, but none of it was written down. And so it was just like things I had done. And so then I bring staff on, and this is probably a story you've heard 1,000 times, but because I had none of it written down and it had worked for me to a point where I needed staff, I was like, they're like, well, what should I do when I'm not busy? I'm like, just go do stuff, like just go. And obviously that doesn't work well when they don't have the same motivators or the same sort of personality. And so a lot of times they didn't. And I was frustrated and they were frustrated. And the bottom line was the business wasn't growing. So we had to start figuring out what the systems were to be able to actually reproduce what we had done early days, which was a lot of hard work and a lot of inefficient work. And it's like, how can we make this more efficient? What are the things that are working for us? What are the things that are not? Do more of the things that work and less of the things that don't. And that took with like, I think it took a lot of self-reflection. It definitely took hiring the right coaches. Like I had a business coach from basically day one, but they weren't the right fits. They weren't industry specific. And like, I think they can be, but I don't think they have to be. But I think early days, it really helps when they're hyper specific to what you do because they've been there, right? And so instead of being a generic business coach that says, you've got to market, I got a business coach that does rehab the way we do it here, basically the same, and was like, here's the checklist. I was like, this is great. And it was like quantified. It was like, you should do a couple hours of this and one of these a month. And I was like, this is brilliant. And the cool part for me anyways, was like, we were doing most of those, but again, I just didn't have it quantified for my staff. And so I was like, we got to do social media. And they're like, well, like what? And so now I could be like, we need to post once a day minimum. But because there's 7 of us or whatever it was at that time, that means it's once a week for everybody. And so we started with that, and it was an uphill struggle, and everyone wants to do it, but no one has time. And so we had to just keep hammering away on that. And now our social media runs like a well-oiled machine. We have a woman named Rhapsody who's behind the scenes, edits it all. You spoke to her a bit, comes up with the ideas. She's young enough that she knows all the trendy stuff. She's like keeping us on point with that. And then more importantly, we've done it. We've said we've had to do it long enough that it's just standard that it happens, and people lean into it. And now they're starting to let their personalities come through, and like it's quirky, it's fun, it's like, I don't know, it's good. It's us at least. So I think that matters. That was the early days. Basically, that's what I did. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I knew that if I was going to market, I'd rather market at a bike race or a running race than at a mall. So I was like, I'm not going to malls. I'm just like, I can't. So I went to all the races that would let me come. And lo and behold, like, people want to help you, and you're a value add to them as well to be there. And so it was a pretty smooth relationship. And one of the big ones early was somersault races. They're in Brockville, they're in Kingston, but there's a bunch of them in Ottawa. And Adam to this day still has us out to all the events we want to go to, and he's a massive support. And yeah, it's great. I figured out that who I wanted to work with, tried to be where they were. That was the early theory. And then now, because there's more than just me, we've got frameworks and we've got processes. And the biggest thing that we started doing recently was implementing standards around a few things that we think matter. So like practicing communication with our patients, practicing how we're going to deliver the plan of care, practicing that kind of stuff. We have a standard that you need to practice that at least twice, and you need to practice it once with someone else on the team. Like, it can't just be you in a mirror or you and your spouse. And so we've started putting standards in so that it's not about motivation anymore. It's like, this is just what we do here. And the analogy I heard the other day was like, you don't need motivation to brush your teeth, most of us, because the standard is you just do it. And it's like, you do it in the morning and you do it at night, and that's the standard. And like, that's kind of what we're trying to bake in here, is like things that you don't think about, you just do.
And
So,
when it comes to implementing those standards, those processes, that kind of thing, or expectations of your team, how do you go about that? Do you ever get pushback from your team?
yeah, for sure.
Or how do you work through all of those challenges?
Yeah, we have a great team, and they still push back. Like, our team's awesome, and the only way this business has grown to where it is now, and it continues to grow, is with good people. But people don't like change. People struggle with, like, everybody's busy. Everyone has their own lives outside of here, whether it's kids, hobbies, all of the above. Like, people are busy. So when you give them more, or what feels like more, there's that initial like, why? And so the thing I learned that through my own frustration is, like, if it's important, say it often. And like, social media is a perfect example. Every time I hire someone, great, I'm glad, I love your social media, I can't wait to do it. I'm going to do one, I want to post every day. And I'm like, okay, pump the brakes there, kid, because they say that, and then the reality hits. Like, they'll do a week of ideas, and then all of a sudden it's like, I've got no more ideas. They've got the social media equivalent of writer's block, and like, it's just the reality hits. And so we just have to keep reminding them, like, the standard is less than what you want to do. The standard is one. Just do one. Rhapsody's going to give you an idea. I just need you to film it. I don't even need you to edit it. Give her the raw footage. She'll figure it out. And inevitably, someone drops the ball. And then you get to figure out if that's like just an exception, or if that's just like something that can't change. And luckily for us, when the ball's dropped here, it's been most of the time exceptions, and we haven't had to, like, we've got the right people. We just need to keep them kind of on point, basically.
That's amazing. And so moving a little bit into like hiring team, not just your practitioners, but you also have an admin team. I know that you work with Rhapsody, your social media person. When did you, between 2017 and now, decide and make, the risky leap, some would say? I've been talking to clients about, like, when is it time to hire? Is it too early? Is it too late? When did you decide, especially as someone who was so hands-on with your marketing, that you could hand off some of that responsibility and, quite frankly, control? When did you know it was time?
I'm not sure I've got like a super direct answer, other than, so in my coaching group, it's a mastermind group. There's a bunch of other clinics all throughout Canada and the US. And definitely this is something people have a hard time giving up control. I know that every time I've done it, my business has gotten better. So at this point, it's like, I want to try and give up as much as I can, as fast as I can. Way back when, I've always done team sports. I think team sports are fun. Some of my best friends and memories are team sports growing up. And so, like, I think that instilled at least a bit of like, I like people in my brain. And like, I know that I do better when I'm hanging out with people, and do worse if I'm just sitting around by myself. So there's that part of it where it's like, I just want to spend my time with people that are challenging and progressing where we're going. The first non-therapy hire, because the therapy hires are pretty easy. It's a direct line to, if you fill their schedule, everybody wins, right? Like the revenue goes up, the profit goes up. You've created a job for someone. Everybody's winning. But the admin ones are the tricky ones because there's not a direct line unless you create one. And so the cool thing about the current climate we're in is that there's all sorts of piecemeal and fractional work out there. So it doesn't have to be straight to, because I think people see the price tag of an admin and whatever that is, but it's, tens of thousands of dollars a year. And they do the math and like they don't have it. And my mentor put it to me this way: it's like, you're not getting married to them. This is not a permanent thing. It's a month to month, week to week trial. And if it doesn't go well, that relationship can end. Like, it's not set in stone. You're not signing off on a $50,000 check day one. There is that, like, it isn't set in stone. And obviously after the probation period, it gets harder to transition someone out. But if you need to do it, there's precedent. You don't have to stay. And honestly, most people, if they're being transitioned out and you're a good employer, they're ready to leave too. They just need someone to lead them. But the first thing I did was hire a part-time virtual assistant, a VA. So I hired her. Her name's Lori. And Lori, she's awesome. I told her this. I told someone else who needed a virtual assistant, and I sent them Lori's way. At that point, Lori had moved on because Lori had done such a good job that we needed someone full-time. And I was like, to me, Lori, this is the best praise I can give you. When you work yourself out of a job, my business has grown, and that's the whole point. So I hired her, started really, really part-time, started offloading small tasks that, one, I was bad at, two, she's better at, and three, like, I didn't want to do them. So those got offloaded, and lo and behold, my email was organized, and I had folders for my documents, and like my stuff was where I thought it would be. And so that all really helped. And so then Lori worked herself into a bigger role where she was handling some of the back end finances and that kind of stuff. And we built trust that way. So that was the first hire. And then we got to a point where I was like, okay, like I need someone full time at our desk, scheduling, emailing, really kind of orchestrating all the things. And that's when Lori, she didn't want to do it, had a family, and she couldn't be in person. And so we started to put out an Indeed ad for admin. And the nice thing about admin is that it's such a wide net that you get people from all walks of life, and you really get a diverse pool of people to kind of choose from. And so one of the things we did is we put a request for a quick video on what they do and why they'd be a good fit. And that filtered the Indeed ads from like 200 in a weekend to about 6. And to this day, we still do this, and we still get people, and it just cracks me. They'll send an email, they're like, great fit for your clinic, super detail oriented, and there's no video and no mention of the video. And I'm like, just read the whole thing. So then we added one admin. Now we've got Rhapsody, who's doing the networking. We've got an office manager named Hollywood, who's really helped take our clinic systems and smooth them out. Yeah, and just be that quarterback that we need. And it's not always easy to lead professionals as a non-professional, but really we need her to lead us, because the professionals are good at one thing. And that's the thing, and they're usually pretty bad at all the other stuff because they don't want to focus on it, and it takes up brain space. So we need someone that can be like, look, you're not doing this well. She definitely can do that. Yeah, and then we've got part-time admin named Hunter, who's here in the evenings for us.
Amazing.
3 people. Yeah.
That's great. And then we had to reschedule today because you were meeting with your bookkeeper. When did you know that you needed to hire or outsource your bookkeeping? And what is it? I am a bookkeeper. Of course. So I'm always finance focused. I'm a numbers nerd, self-declared. When did you know that you needed a bookkeeper? Was that day one? You're like, I need to make sure my finances are in order.
Yeah,
it should have been.
Day one.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my questions. If you could go back to 2017 and tell yourself, what should you do? Walk me through a little bit about like realizing you need that external support.
Yeah, one of the things actually, and I didn't have it written down, would have been to tell myself to not be so cheap on some of the important things, like bookkeeper, accountant, and kind of corporate lawyer to set things up. Like, they're annoying expenses. The bookkeeper, not so much, but like the corporate lawyer and all that kind of stuff to get the structure right. Because my opinion, I don't think it should be this complicated to, maybe it's not to other people, but it is to me to set up a corp. Most business owners aren't law professionals. And so anyways, if that would be easier, you wouldn't need them, but you do need them, because when it's done right, it's done right. You get peace of mind. Same thing with bookkeeper. I had a small part-time clinic in the US, and I did my own bookkeeping because it was so small and it was easy to do. And so I figured I could do the same here because I was starting from zero and was desperately wrong. I can't remember, basically by the end of year one, when I had to do taxes. I think I tried to do the books and it was just kind of wrong. The accountant was like, what is this mess? And so he basically told me he wasn't doing it unless I hired a bookkeeper. So then I found Jen, the same bookkeeper I've had this whole time. And she's been working with me ever since. And we meet at this point, we meet monthly to go over any changes in the business, any sort of questions I've got about the numbers, any red flags. She has an accounting background as well. So she's got a pretty diverse ability to see the numbers. And yeah, she isn't an accountant, so she doesn't do accounting things, but there's a lot of like, if I was your accountant, or if this was my business, like the broad strokes. And so that's pretty crucial because I am not a numbers junkie. Math gives me anxiety, but to run a proper business, you definitely need to know your numbers. Like it starts and ends with that, right? Like if it can't happen on paper, it's not going to happen in real life. Humans are powerful, but we can't will things that like just don't. Then when the math doesn't math, it's not good. And that was one of the things I've had to learn along the way because there's such a kind of set in stone way of doing things here in this industry. There's a set in stone way of doing things. And so it's good till it's not. And I got to a point where it wasn't great anymore. And I needed to transition for the health of the business to a different model. And that's where my mentor helped me a lot with taking people from independent contractor commission split to salaried employees with guaranteed hours and things like that, which made a big mess for Jen and changed our format. And basically every month she's like, so are we hiring anyone new this month? I'm like, no, we're good this month. Yeah. So she's been a massive help in rolling the punches. And one of the things she does well, she's, like I said, if I didn't have to focus on bookkeeping, I would absolutely not, is she is stern enough to be like, look, you got to do this. Like, I know it's annoying. You got to go to the bank and figure out what this charge is for. Like, so to put her foot down and kind of tell me what's what. Because I'm sure if she didn't, like, she's part-time, not in person, she'd just get steamrolled. And by steamrolled, I mean, like, I just wouldn't do it. And we wouldn't have answers and we'd be in the same spot we were, So she's definitely very good at being the bad cop when she needs to be. Yeah, but the numbers are important.
I often have discussions with my clients of, I know that this isn't why you started your business, but I need you to tell me what this charge is, what you want to do, what the goals are. Because fundamentally, like it or not, the business does revolve around finances.
For sure.
In every which way, money in, money out, hiring, firing, it all comes down to money. I mean, there's also like culture fit and people fit and that kind of thing. But a lot of those decisions are based around money and making sure that your business is profitable. Being the bad cop is hard, but also necessary.
That part I think is hard in health and wellness for sure. It often feels like the business results and the health wellness results can be at odds if not done well. And by that I mean, like, in a lot of industries, if you do good for your client, your customer, your patient, you see more of them, right? They spend more money with you. Like that's usually a straight line. In ours, it's the opposite. Like you do well with them. And oftentimes it's like, hey, you're better. You're good to go do the thing you want to do. So maybe they stick around for maintenance. Maybe they don't. Maybe you believe in that. Maybe you don't. But like, even if they do, that's a very infrequent visit. And so you've done this thing where the patient gets better and you see them less and the business still needs to run. I've always been like, oh man, that's such a weird business model. That's the goal. Like, because the goal with the oath you take is, first do no harm and then, do well to your patients so that they're happy and healthy. And like, that's the goal, is to not see them. Eventually you want to high five. And, I was laughing, people like basically say some version of like, it'll be nice to not see you for a while, It's true. Yeah. It makes for business life being different.
Yeah. My husband's a social worker. He's a therapist, basically. And he always talks about like work yourself out of a job because ultimately you want your patient to be better, of course. And, I've had my own medical things. I had a heart surgery and I told my cardiologist respectfully, I hope I never see you again.
Totally.
And
I hope
different
you don't
medical
either.
field, of course, but yeah.
But same result. Like the goal is health, right? How you get there is different from field to field, but a lot of them, the end result is the patient is able to manage themselves and has the tools to take care of themselves. And as a doctor, you're like, box checked, great. As a business owner, you're like, okay, now we need to find another Erika.
Yeah, exactly. As we start wrapping up, this is kind of a hard question, but is there something that you try to implement in your business that failed? There was no uptick, whether from clients, patients, your team, maybe just from you, that you're like, hey, I'm going to be better on this. and
Yeah.
it just failed over the last 8 years. What did that look like? What'd you learn from it? What would you recommend?
I mean, first of all, lots of things have failed. I think we've failed forward every time. I think we should not necessarily celebrate failure, but at least embrace it. Like it's the most painful way to learn, but it's the way you actually learn. It sucks when it happens, and then you look back at it, and you're like, that was important and necessary and made me better. And so the biggest one we did is, so we wanted to respect our appointment times, but we wanted to try and have someone else, by someone else, I mean an assistant, deliver the rehab portion of our sessions. So back then we were doing half-hour sessions. I was doing, if I or the physio or the chiro was doing all of the hands-on, the manipulation if it was happening, and the rehab. We had a healthy mix of both. And so we figured if we could offload it to someone else, I could see double the amount of people while still maintaining that kind of treatment time that people had come to expect from us, and the philosophical underpinnings of needing both the hands-on and the active rehab. So those are things that we believed in as a clinic, and we didn't want to lose them, but we were wondering if there's a way to do it so that we could have more volume, basically. We tried that. We hired an amazing strength and conditioning coach who had worked in a clinic before, great guy. His name's Lloyd. We grossly underestimated how much more marketing we should do to fill in the gaps. And so it was right when I hired my first in-person admin, and I had Lloyd as well. And so all of a sudden I had this significant increase in salary that I needed to fill, and basically the same revenue. And so we bled a lot of money for 3-4 months. And then luckily, because it was coming to the point where I was going to have to let someone go, Lloyd and his wife, who is a chiro, his wife went back to work. She was on mat leave, and they opened their own clinic in Russell. And so Lloyd left, which sucked because Lloyd was awesome. He's a solid strength and conditioning guy, good culture fit. Like, he was a great person, but like, it just wasn't going to work the way we were doing it. Something was going to have to give. And he moved on, and we went, maybe we'll just put a pause on this idea, and we've paused it and stopped it. So that was an expensive lesson, but a good lesson to learn. And right around that time is when I started working with my coach, Justin, and we figured out a different way to get to the same spot with a different format. That was the biggest one that jumps out at me. Yeah, the other one was that I've tried is we had on staff back when we were independent contractors, an acupuncturist, and great person, good at what she does with acu. It just wasn't a good fit for our marketing, our patient base, and basically the culture of the clinic. It just didn't kind of jive with what we were doing. So we had a hard time filling that schedule, even though we were doing the checklist, even though she was putting in time with all of the marketing things we were doing. It just wasn't adding up. And so, yeah, that was a painful conversation when we were like, look, like, it's not, I don't think, like, this isn't working, like, we just can't keep beating our heads against the wall. Yeah. So we had that conversation. Sucked. We hugged at the end. She now works at another clinic. As far as I know, she's busy and thriving. And so, yeah, like, it just wasn't a good fit here. Again, it's not a knock on her as a provider. She's really good. Just didn't work here. And like, that's the worst part, when they're like, no one did anything wrong. There's nothing to even be mad about. It's nothing to yell about. It's just like, it's just not working. That's
Yeah. And sometimes as business owners, we have to really align ourselves or realign ourselves and be like, we offer these 4, 5, 6 things, and that's
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be good at as a clinic. And it's okay that another service provider or another offering doesn't fit into that. As much as it's complementary, of course, sometimes it just isn't what your current patients are after.
Yeah. And for the few people where they need it, we can make that referral because it was like, she works close to here. So like, we would make that referral anyway. So
is there anything else that you want to share about your business story? Anything that I haven't asked you that you really wanted to share a story about?
Well, one, I think I've mentioned it a bunch, but I do think it's worth finding a coach, finding one that fits you, fits your personality, challenges you in the right ways, but ultimately helps you grow. Like, I've had lots of people since I've been working with Justin who know indirectly because they see me on like a recorded call or whatever. And so they reach out and they ask me, and like, it's great. Like, I like the people I met, but I wouldn't spend the amount of money I'm spending for coaching just to meet people, like, I'm good. I got great friends here. And so the bottom line is it helped my business grow. It helped me create a more stable business. It helps me continue to develop and challenge myself in a way that I know will continue to push my business as well. And so to me, it's got to check that box too, right? It can't just be a social circle. It's got to be a coach that helps you build. The last thing, especially because I know your podcast talks a lot to health and wellness people, It's like, don't be afraid of the dirty words that we think are dirty in this industry, even though they're not, because it's life. Like marketing is a real thing. You got to do it. Unless you live in a, in a one pony town type of thing where there's only one Cairo or there's only one X, like you got to do it. Sales isn't a dirty word. Everything is sales, whether it's a monetary exchange or not. Like I had to convince my kid to put his Crocs on this morning. That was a sales pitch. And so it's all sales, right? Like life is sales. Like there's a book out there, to sell is to be human, and like it's the truth. And so the quicker I think people can wrap their heads around that, the easier being okay with the fact that there's competition. Like we've got a clinic in the alley beside us. We've got a clinic, two clinics on the next block over. Like there's competition out there. People have choices. And so the person that solves the problem the clearest for the patient or the client will get or earn the right to fulfill that promise and help that person out. And that was not a clear way of saying that, but basically if you are clear to your patient, they will stay. Otherwise, they will go somewhere else because someone else will be clear. And that to me is air quotes sales. Now it's got to be done ethically. Obviously, like all those caveats exist. You got to sell someone services they need for a problem they have. Like yes, obviously. But at the end of the day, you do have to sell
show
them
up
on it.
authentically and ethically and all those good things, of course. Do you have any tips, maybe top 3 things that could help someone get through feeling awkward about showing up for marketing or sales? And they're just like, oh, I don't know how to get on social media. I don't know how to start marketing. I feel awkward. Do you have any tips, tricks, top 3 recommendations?
1, start. Don't create a plan. Just start doing it. The plan is a distraction. The more time you spend doing reps versus building a plan, the better you'll be. And so you might as well do reps, obviously reflect on it and you can refine and yada, yada. But if you spend 5 hours building a plan versus 5 hours building content, you're more efficient on the content than if you had just done the plan. So I think you need to start. Once you've started, reflect, refine. For the sales bit, practice with people you trust that'll give you good feedback. Find people that can help you that have done it before, and spend time practicing away, because whether you practice on your patients or away from your patients, you're going to practice. But if you're practicing on your patients, it's going to not go well. It's going to be unclear. And ultimately, it's probably not going to lead to a successful interaction. I think those are the things that have helped our team the most. Like the practicing was huge. We role play. Every interaction is a role play, and so that's awkward. But like if you can't look at the person in the face at first, like pull a screen and just start saying it so they can hear it. But like we got to get past that initial kind of stickiness and just start practicing.
Yeah, I always just say, like, I'm awkward, you're awkward. Let's just acknowledge the awkward and move on. Like, everyone is feeling a little bit awkward in this engagement. Let's just keep going. And role playing is awkward. I've done so much of it historically. I stand in role play for sales teams, and it is awkward, but it's practicing what to say when you're stumbling over your words. It's a safe environment. Just recognize the awkwardness and push through it. You're not going to learn and you're not going to grow if you don't get through it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, someone explained sales once as creating a solution for a problem and creating clarity around that problem. And so to me, that sounds exactly like what I'm doing when I'm actually treating someone. I'm just also verbalizing how that plan's going to go and what we need to commit to get them from feeling in pain to running the 5K they've got in 3 months, or whatever their goal is. It's like, tell me what your goal is, tell me what's going on, and then like we'll fill in the gap so that we can get you there. And like that's an honest conversation. I think the dishonest thing to do is to be like, it'll be a couple times for the next few weeks and then we'll see. And it's like, that's so not clear and so unfair to the patient, because they don't know what they're committing to. They don't know what it's going to take, what they have to prioritize. Like it's just not fair. And so I think it's looking at it from the lens of the patient. It's like, what would you want someone you care about to get care-wise? And hopefully that can move someone from feeling awkward to just trying and seeing how it goes. And then the other bit is like, humans are mostly focused on themselves. So you might feel awkward, but no one else is noticing.
No. Not at all.
It's such a raw way to put it, but man, it's so true.
Yeah. I once was told no one else is thinking about you as much as you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
So stop stressing what people think about you and just focus on you.
And like if patients haven't been in your office, they don't know what to expect. So it's a blank canvas, right? So just try your best and then debrief after, and then next time you do it a little better and it gets better. And like to me, in my office anyways, like if we're getting better, then what happens at the end, it is a byproduct of us getting better. And like if it doesn't go great, no one's 100%. But like, tell me we did the steps. Yes, great. We checked that box. Tell me we tried something that we weren't trying before. We asked a follow-up question. We leaned into the discomfort of navigating someone's obstacle. And if we did that, then we're growing and we're getting better. And I can live with that for a very long time. It's when we stop doing that. Can and won't is a dangerous place to live.
Are you ready to turn your chaos into calm? Subscribe and follow the Business Flow formula. Let's create more profit, efficiency, and flow together.